Yeah. Those blacks on it, that's fine, that's no black on it, they're like, a company buys the properties and then they sell them, right? And they don't like, right? So whenever you're on like social media, they'll say, oh, well, you buy your house here at a really good price, it's usually not.
It's a finance plan. I feel like I've heard of it.
So,
Yeah,
so, you know, we've started the official Zoom, but I haven't called the meeting to order yet. We're waiting for questions should be coming, right? And anyone else that needs to join. Would you have any chance for Joe?
Yes.
How do you pronounce your last name, Joe?
Knight.
Okay, thanks. We'll call the meeting to order. Under, what is all she, like, there is one.
It's very good. Investor.
Should be.
Yeah, I think there are a few minutes.
That's your driver. Thanks.
No, I could be,
it's probably, suppose, see. That has been 3 or 4 houses.
Chris, really, I can tell he's in retirement mode from this call.
Just something else.
Yeah. Yes.
There's no connection with anybody.
Chris, is this your retirement mode garb?
This is just what I worked at, yeah.
Here we go, good. Good evening,
Oh, it's hard.
I'm sorry, I was gonna
no problem,
log in because I know I was gonna.
okay.
Let me get.
No, you know, and then someone else is right behind me. Oh, that's not here. Hi. Okay, I think we can now call the meeting to order, so we'll officially call the Newburyport Historical Commission meeting to order for the 26th of September 2024. We are the Senior Community Center Boardroom. 331 High Street, and also on Zoom for those who are logged in that way. And be aware that like all these meetings, it is being recorded. So we'll start as per usual with the roll call. And alphabetical order here. Let's see, we've got Andrew Bernhardt.
I'm
Down right? Good. Yes, he's here. Thank you. Scott Clark. There it is down there. Christopher Fay is here. Alan Markey here down there. Ed Neumer.
Here.
Yeah. And Chris Lieutenant here. And myself, Chair Glenn Richards is here. One member, Mark St. Jones, is absent. And we also have Gretchen Joy, note taking, and Caitlin Sullivan and Andy planning office to my left. If we have a public comment period, I'll read the instructions for that. So there are no delay hearings or DCOD hearings tonight, but we do have a number of things that fall under general business correspondence. The first and probably most significant is this one with, did you say Knight? Yeah. With 38 Forester Street. Joe Knight is here to talk about that. It's just to lay the groundwork very briefly. It's and keep me honest here, it's one of those section 6 deals where there's a large lot. The applicant is seeking a permit to have 2 structures on a lot, so that the requirement for some public benefit, which in this case would be a permanent preservation restriction on the historic house. And so that's basically the story there. We should be familiar with this. I think we've all seen a number of these. So Joe, what would you like to tell us about your plans?
So I represent the property owners of 38 Forester, and you kind of laid it out, the 6C process, as long as you have sufficient area, sufficient frontage, and the lot's big enough, you are allowed to put a second structure on it. And the planning board, asked us to go to the historical commission and ask for a PR restriction. So as part of the PR restriction, this draft is based off of 350 that Kevin generally provided for me. And the house was built in 1860. Funny enough, 38 and 40, which is right next to it, were built by Albert Courier, and they were actually built as spec houses, which is kind of interesting. So Forester goes along, and then it's perpendicular to Stanley, and then the lot is big enough in the back that we'd like to put a second independent structure off of Stanley.
So a couple of quick questions. So are we dealing here with just 38 or is 40 involved at all?
Just 38,
Okay,
so,
okay.
and it's been well taken care of. My clients purchased the property about a year ago. They updated the inside, as far as painting wise, and then the outside was kind of dilapidated, so, we picked a historic paint, we painted it back to, historic gray. That was somewhat there. It has been vinyl sided, along 40 had been vinyl sided next to it also, so. But the original windows do remain.
And it appeared to me, from my brief, excuse me, brief inspection that it is vinyl sided now.
Yes, yeah,
Though the windows appear to be.
the windows are original.
So let me, anyone have any questions for, Mr. Knight about either the plans or what he intends to do? And any, one of the things that, Kayla and I talked about was the possibility of, a site visit, if you guys want to see the place in person, to look it over and, see if you feel it merits consideration for a PR, which is which will protect it in perpetuity, or not. So that's also a possibility if you guys decide you want to do that.
I just want to be clear, so a proposed new structure would front on the Stanley, you said, right?
Yes.
Correct, okay.
It's a second.
So there's 38 right here, of course, you're coming down, so it'll be a separate driveway here for the second independent structure. Off of Stanley.
When I saw this plot plan, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but it looks like the driveway for 38 encroaches on the neighbor's lot, doesn't it?
Just a little bit.
Oh,
It wouldn't be on in the report.
Yeah.
no, okay, so we'll put that aside. Is there any, normally, when we have a house that's being considered historic and we want to preserve it as a historic property, it's expected that it will have, historic materials such as, wood clapboards, not vinyl and all that. Have you, and or your client discuss possibilities of, doing that kind of upgrade?
No.
That could be a, sticking point, so to speak. Any other question, no other questions? Yeah.
Is there an addition going on, a new addition? There we go.
So as part of the plan, we have a proposed addition. We're not building it, but we wanted to put it out there that it's a possibility for the next property owner, that it's been historic. They can see that we have a proposed addition, but we're not planning on building it at this time.
Oh, so we should make sure I understand it. So what you're saying that you want to have sort of a pre-approved spot
To put the
or
addition, yeah.
condition or whatever to do that specific thing in the future.
You all have seen this in other PRs where there are changes proposed, and then that section is added into the PR called the grantors proposed and granted changes. We've seen that a few times.
Yeah. Especially in the first material.
Yeah, and I mean, we're asking for proposal, and obviously, whether, I don't think it'll be my clients, but whoever does buy the property, if they want to do it, they still have to go in front of the building permit, and it's still have to come in front of you guys to get approval for this proposed addition.
I guess that was my question, why are we looking into it now and without any plans for the future? I don't,
Just to be upfront with the commission.
if you are upfront, we would want to be see if it had, if the addition would take away from the existing structure on that piece of property. And we don't have the authority to make it a two-family lot, if I understand this correctly. But we do have the authority if something is put in that lot, that might threaten the historical significance of that house.
Meaning the compatibility of its appearance in relation to, so having some
Right.
idea of what you're proposing so that you can evaluate the nature of its impact.
Exactly.
Okay. And that could be, you know, incorporated in the permit process and not be neglected, let's say, right? Is that it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just as a note, so the original house is the box itself, right, the cape, and then the small house, the small addition on the back is the kitchen that was added sometime after the house was built. So, because it's obviously a different type of foundation and everything. So all we were asking, you know, all we wanted to show is that a possibility of taking what's existing now and extending it out in case anybody ever wanted to add a larger kitchen or a living area. And obviously you build it, you know, the whole, they'd have to follow the guidelines and keep it with the same restrictions and the same looks and the characteristics of the house that's there now.
That's really a separate thing from what you're looking for, though. It's really not related.
It's not related for the, I mean, I
Like,
put it,
it's not really related. It's kind of like two separate things. You're just saying, in the future, if someone wanted to do something, they could put it there. But essentially, it's a sort of separate issue for the future. If that person wanted to do it, then it would be a whole other process they'd have to go through. So,
Sorry, you're talking about getting approval now so that it's in hand for whoever comes down the road as opposed to coming back later, right? That's, yeah.
correct.
oh, I didn't understand. that.
Okay.
Okay, well, that's.
I mean, it's
that's a
part of
whole-
the PR itself, it's incorporated into.
Okay,
Yeah, it's not,
okay.
as I think Caitlin said, it's not terribly unusual to have conditions in preservation restrictions where there'll be certain things pre-approved. Some things I can think of like, you know, either, that certain windows are okay to be replaced or, you know, just whatever it is, and it's, because well, just to make it clear, you know, right from the beginning, what is okay to change and what's not, but particularly if there's something like this where it's an addition, it's kind of a toss-up in this case, I mean, that even if it had a PR, trying to think, a person could still come in with, you know, with a proposal to build a thing like that and have it be reviewed by the commission, and, it wouldn't necessarily be, you know, thrown out of hand just because it had a PR, because it's not, and it's for your benefit too, Joe, because it's not, affecting the actual historic structure, it's an addition, that's, you know, relatively small and in the back and all of that. So, so it might not even really be necessary, but I understand, why I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, my thought was, we do it as a first floor proposal, and then if somebody obviously wanted to come back, like, if you look at 40, they added onto the back of it and extended the box to make it bigger, and they did a full 2-story addition, whereas I
Yeah.
proposed a first-story addition versus, I mean, if somebody wanted to come back, they could propose a second-story addition, obviously it would come back in front of the board, then you guys would have to say, you know.
Well, is there any interest in going out to take a look at this? Why not?
I think so.
Does people have their, is it occupied at the moment?
It's not occupied now.
Okay, and not that we don't have any jurisdiction of the interiors anyway, so it's kind of, you know, fluid. Could you or someone on your team, so to speak, be available to do that, what day would be good for people in general?
For me, not weekends, you know,
Okay, so other than a weekend,
weekday.
a couple people who work, right?
Yes, I'm not, I'm in Cambridge every day, so I wouldn't base it on me during the weekend.
And it's getting dark, too early to do it, and to stuff at the calendar real quick. See if we can come up with a date.
When they bought the house, it was vinyl sided and then they put paint on the vinyl siding?
Yes.
Is that?
Do you know what's underneath the vinyl siding? Is there clapboards underneath it?
I'm not sure,
Oh, no.
so. I'm assuming it was done at the same time that 40 was done,
Hmm.
so.
Mhm.
Could people, okay, today's Thursday, the 26th. Could people, do it perhaps, next Wednesday, the 2nd of October? Sometime, some convenient time.
During the day or in the evening?
Well,
I won't be able to do it during the day, during the weekend.
well, what's the earliest, the folks that have to work, what's the earliest in the evening you could do it?
Like 5:30.
Oh, okay, it's not bad, it's still light.
I can do that.
You could, oh, okay.
evening?
Yeah. We'll do that,
On Wednesday.
yeah,
I can't that evening.
okay. Okay, most, sounds like most people could make it out.
Yeah.
Is there another day that week, that, yeah, you could?
Thursday isn't good, Friday.
Well, how
Can
many?
anybody do Monday?
Yeah, I mean, how many do we actually have that?
Yeah, how many?
To your point.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I think how many people typically should be there is, what's a reasonable?
get 3 people, you're doing pretty well.
There's no set thing, if everyone wanted to come, great, if only half of us showed up, it's fine, just, typically, then people who do show up can share, with when we get back to meet again, we can share our thoughts on it. So we're still looking at the evening of the 2nd?
At 5:30, is that?
Yes,
Wednesday works for me, because I got to coach football Tuesdays and Thursdays, so Wednesday would be good.
okay, then why don't we do that? I'll put it in my calendar here, so Wednesday, the
31st.
Thursday, the 2nd. What's that? Night, the 38th, right? 38 first. Okay, so, 5:30. And you'll be there, Joe?
I'll be there, yes.
Okay. And, okay, great. Okay, well, we'll do that and, we'll take it from there and, see what we can do. By the way, just as an aside, you might wanna have someone review the PR. There's a number of minor typos and weird things in there. Clearly they weren't errors, they were just like paragraph above mistakes.
So we continue this item to the next NHC meeting.
Okay.
To
Yeah.
And when's that
go over
meeting?
again. That is
And I think,
the 10th, yeah.
this will continue that to the 10th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming in, Joe, appreciate it. Okay,
No, we were supposed to have someone from the church here to represent the
yes.
next item. There is one attendee, so I'm gonna, was the attendee online listed as Mark here for the correspondence item? No, they just got off.
So,
So I think we should
Cynthia Walsh is-
continue that to the next meeting.
Yeah, 'cause-
We would want them here.
Yeah, definitely, because we raised a lot of questions, there was quite a volume of technical information, it's like,
Yeah.
what do we do with this?
Yep, so we'll continue that to the next
All right,
meeting.
all right, so thanks. And, I have a whole preamble here explaining, this is, somewhat most of you remember, this is the Unitarian Church putting Anthony in the steeple. So it sounds like they probably just want to make did they say anything when they looked this as to what it was gonna be?
Well, it's my understanding that the change really is just the equipment size, which is larger than what was before you before.
Okay, okay. Great, so we'll continue that as well. Here. Oh, zipping through here now, the next one is, there were 2 letters in the correspondence, I don't know if you had a chance to review them. Neither one of them require action that I can see on our part, but we might be slightly involved in Atkinson Common Tower one. The first was a letter to, this was to Attorney Mead, right? Yeah, they're working on a preservation restriction for 350 High Street in Mass. And a couple of corrections, some minor, some slightly less minor, but basically to get that PR to their approval process, sound like minor stuff. Nothing we need to do on that, that's up to them to fix. And then the Atkinson Common Observation Tower, Caitlin and I talked a little bit about this, there was a meeting, I think it was in City Hall, right, with Kim Turner and a couple of people, they were doing research on that, stone tower, and they want to get it, listed as, so there's an interesting letter, the Mass Historical Commission, the way I read the letter, they sounded basically supportive, but needed a little bit more meat, so to speak, to consider, and they had a couple suggestions as to it, so as far as I'm concerned, I think that ball is kind of in city halls like Kim's and people down there's court. But we're happy to work with them, they can do this too. So that was that, there are the minutes from the 22nd of August, I believe, Mr. Marquis, Mr. Baus, and Neumer coming to abstain because you weren't here that day. So is there a motion to approve those meetings, minutes rather?
I'll make a motion to approve the meetings.
Thank you, Mr.
Presented.
Thank you, Chris Sartell. Here a second. Thank you.
I will.
Okay, so Andrew, your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. It's not here. Maybe it's like we didn't. Scott?
Yes.
Okay, Chris Payne?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I know you.
Chris Sartell?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the chair is yes, okay, so those are approved. Are we back on the agenda?
Sorry, yeah, I have to pick up my son, so
Oh,
it's so
okay.
closer to 8, so sorry.
Okay, I take it you're from,
First religious society,
FRSUC and all that.
FRSBU, yeah.
Review, sorry, okay. All right, well, we were gonna continue you to the next meeting, but since you're here, maybe we can dispose of it now.
Great,
Um,
sorry.
Yeah, you can stay where you are and just speak up so the Zoom thing can hear you and all that. We saw rather voluminous technical plans. Could you maybe sum up briefly what it is, we discussed this before.
Yeah.
The commission had approved it. So can you sum up what the changes are? exactly?
Sure, so there was a misprint or a misunderstanding of the print, this is from Dish, so first of all, Cynthia Gabriel Walsh, and I work at First Religious Society. And so it is actually a 90-foot antenna, not a 60-foot, which is the fit on the plan, so the updated plans that were submitted about a few weeks ago reflected the actual footage of the antenna.
90 feet. You did say 90 feet.
Yes, yes, and on the original plan it was 60, but it was from my understanding, it was a misprint.
Oh, and that's gonna fit inside.
It's already there, it's already done.
They fit a 90% down inside.
Well, it goes, I think it's the whole structure, if I'm correct, from the bottom down.
Huh. Well, I guess that's a good thing that no one noticed it was there.
Right, yeah, no, this came through and they're like, no, it's already in, so it's installed, but it was on the plans, it was written as 60 and it should have been 90.
I see. Anyone have any questions for Cynthia? So the only question I have is, I haven't conducted a careful visual inspection, but I don't know if there's anything different, is there any difference in appearance from the outside?
No, and I did not even notice it either, so I was like, what is this? And they explained it was supposed to be 90 and it was, the intention was 90, but it was on the plans at 60.
All right, so
Is this like a cable, does that includes that? like,
Yeah.
antenna essentially?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, okay. It's not I think in our heads, we're picturing a 90-foot tower.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
visual,
Yeah.
you cannot see it from up the exterior of the church, I looked and I was like, I didn't see anything, so interior.
any questions? We have a motion to, be okay. Why don't we, would someone, excuse me, would someone like to make a motion that, the board is, grants its, well, that the board does not find any adverse impact to the, structure, due to this change.
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Okay, no adverse impact. Okay, is there a second?
No second.
Okay. Okay, we'll go on one, Andrew,
Yes.
okay. Scott Clark,
Yes, but I should say I go to this church, so I don't know that. Staying there. And I know Cynthia.
okay. Chris Fane,
I will reluctantly vote yes.
okay, Mr. Sartell,
Yes.
the chair is okay, and those people, Ed Markey.
Alan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alan, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's Ed Neumann, huh?
Yes.
So you guys are both yeses, right? And when there's anybody, if there's you,
Yes. Yes, you did, and yes.
okay, yeah, because I was using the roll call from the minutes and some people were missing. Okay, well, it's odd that it's a technicality, as they say, but it sounds like you're,
Okay, great.
it sounds like you're all set,
Yeah.
no one in trouble, no one, will find, will undergo the old fire, trial by ordeal. Okay,
Any further questions, we can bring in dish too, like,
Okay.
yeah, that's.
all right, well, thank you, Cynthia, for coming in, and, we appreciate it. Okay, so we went to the correspondence, we took care of that. Any updates from the planning director?
I don't think so, unless you wanted me to speak to briefly the survey, you and I had a brief exchange, I don't know if it makes sense for me to speak briefly to the survey, structure survey project and
Oh,
what's there.
Yeah, okay, yeah, let me give a brief introduction to that. You recall that a couple people volunteered to kind of help try to work on that, updating the things, right? Well, it hasn't been completely gotten, believe it or not. So I asked Andy about it, saying, okay, if we have this grant money, do we need to go through a formal process of RFP and this and that, or if we find a, qualified person who's licensed or whatever to do this work, can we just like hire them so we can, get rolling? That was my question.
Yeah.
And the answer is,
Okay, so the answer is, remember, I have to put my municipal procurement hat on, right? So we have to do things according to certain procedures, so real simple terms and.
I was afraid of that.
Yeah, sorry, so as best I can, just summarize it briefly, and then if you have any questions, you want me to unpack first, let me know. We can either do two processes, basically, and we can get into more details, but basically, and trying to keep those simple terms, is we can do a request for proposals where we get the basic qualifications of a firm, and then, the proposed price that they're gonna give us. Or we can go through a more streamlined process, which is a little bit more efficient, might be more profitable in some ways, is you're not so much looking at their qualifications and evaluating them in that, comparing them in that sort of nuanced way, you're just looking at the price proposal they give you. So as long as they meet minimum qualifications, which you spell out explicitly, you're just getting quotes from the vendors. And if they give you a good price, meaning the consultants that have experience, if they have a good price, the best price is the one that wins, as long as they meet those minimum qualifications. And if you can't explicitly codify those things as qualifications that can be put into like, just give us a quote, based on this work, then you're talking about an RFP process where you want some ability to look at their qualifications as submitted and kind of make an evaluation, as part of your process. That can take longer, it can be a little more complicated. So, but the flip side of that is, if you do the quote process, you have a little bit less sort of discretion or control and sort of evaluating their criteria for qualifications, because you've already outlined what those are, and you're going straight to, this is the scope, just give us a price. So.
Is there a minimum number of people or firms that you have to?
You're supposed to try to solicit for 3. I mean, granted, if you can't, nobody's responding back, the city can't be, held back by, we only got one or two, but we should be looking to try to get a comparable, comparison of three. And so I guess in, the sum, I guess, is that if you want to proceed further, I think the things that might be useful are, one thing which, was a sort of a issue I had when I was talking with the state at the time, back was, I had thought, I had thought that MHC would be able to say to us, hey, I have my request, do you have an example, a template of the RP or the scope of work that was used, so we could model off of that, because partly they want, at the time with this grant that we did have at the state, they wanted us to have the draft reviewed by them, and yet they had run this stuff before, they weren't able to give us an example saying, and this didn't make any sense to me, so I had to put that aside for a second, right, this is part of, so bottom line, I guess, is I'm sure, I imagine if we went back now, they'd be able to say, here's an example, I assume they've been running this program, they'd give us an example, here's one that we liked, or here's, and we could build it off of that, so one, we know that they're already comfortable with how that's developed, two, we know it's thorough enough, right, we can draft some of these our own, but it's a lot more efficient that way to know that they're gonna be on board with how we structured that, and so that would be the starting point to me. Merging that with just our typical quote or RFP process, sending it out on the street, so to speak, which is a formal advertising, we have to advertise it. So we put it in the newspaper, we put it on these two state websites to show that the consultants are, take a look for it, they're all kind of general, we know where to go. But ideally, you would also be able to help us by giving us specific, we have some we've compiled ourselves, but specific firms or consultants that we know of, or we've heard of, that we think might be qualified, we want to blast them directly, so we know that they're paying attention to it and might give us a response. In addition to the generic, advertising that they may or may not see. So having the, confirmed scope that works, that kind of makes sense from our end and from MHC, would make sense. Setting that out there in the street, I guess confirming which path you want to take there, in some ways, and then, if we're gonna take the quote process in particular, spelling out those minimum qualifications, so we can just be clear right from the outset, which is frankly a more efficient route in some ways, but if we can get it there. But then, the ranking of, the other thing was the ranking of the structures. I think we sort of tail ended, I don't know if we ever completed that process, but the idea was because you can only get a certain number of covered through this, right? And I forget, was it like 20 or something, something that was the kind of range or the assumption, somewhere in that range, 15 or 20, that we should probably be able to give, because you have to be explicit and clear with each vendor, they can't get apples and oranges from us. Here are the 20 that we want you to do. So you give us your price, and they're within budget, they're the best price, and they meet all the qualifications, they're the ones we work with, and we get going with them. If it's RFP process, you're evaluating their qualifications and their price proposal, and then deciding where to go, but that takes longer, it's more involved. But either case, we have to give them apples to apples comparisons of what's the scope, and what are the properties they gotta review, because otherwise, how do they give us some kind of price on what the scope is? So this is the fair sort of, formal procurement process we have to do. And so in essence, we need to put together something that I think also makes sense here, irrespective of which funds are being used. Still makes sense in my view to get input from MHC on the, scope or the format of that, because it helps to make sure that they're gonna be looking at everything, including the 4Bs, they're coming out of the tail end. Everybody's on the same page, but ideally, the main things I think are, what are the qualifications you think are minimal? Do you want to go an RFP route or a quote route process? And more importantly, perhaps more than anything, is just the ranking, so we can say, these are the top, X properties that we want to focus on, because otherwise, I don't think it's reasonable to start the process by saying the consultants, we'll figure out which ones those are and how many there are later on. That's hard for them to give us a quote, hard for us to know what the contract scope is and so it doesn't work that way, so.
Okay, so if we, say we can find three or maybe more, let's say at least three people that are like, licensed professionals that, have done these things, Form Bs in the area and so on.
And I'm sure, I haven't checked with MHC recently, but I'm sure when we reach them, they should be able to say, like, are these are some folks that,
Well, that was
biggest possible list, right? So,
this was my question, would they need to or want to review anything before we send it out?
MHC?
Yeah,
well, I don't think in this instance they would have to, but I still think it may be beneficial to, I actually, what I'm thinking here is, we're talking about the use of CPA funds here, right? So it's not that so much that we need their review, I just think it might be beneficial to see what examples they have felt comfortable with, that scope, so that it's easier to have our own, have it be consistent with the, the scope that's gonna be finished. And that will basically inform, the detailed Form Bs that we're gonna get back, and the quality essentially of the scope and what's going to those Form Bs. For instance, the scope of work might not just say do the Form Bs, it's gonna say attend X number of meetings with the historic commission to review the Form Bs, right? Make, one or two rounds of revisions to the Form Bs based on your feedback, or so like, that's the scope of work isn't just, do Form Bs, you gotta give a little bit of details about how many meetings they might have to attend, because they have to basically say, all right, here's how many hours are going in that, and here's our price. So as long as we're able to outline those things, it's just that the most efficient way of doing that is working off an existing template that, and then getting out to as many consultants, so we don't miss them just by generic advertisement. And in some ways, if it, just leave it to you, but if it can be done as a quote process, while you're not given as much latitude to kind of, look at the consultants, you have to, if they meet the qualifications, you're going right to the number. It is a lot faster and more efficient to do it that way, so.
Do you guys have a sort of a, for lack of a better term, inside track with the MHC because it can be time consuming or there can be delays hearing back from them and so on. You get, I like this. What's the most expedient way of seeing if they have something we can, base,
Although you haven't reached out to them recently, right? Okay, I mean, I guess I would ask if Caitlin could reach out and see if they have anything, we can't guarantee any results back, but we can ping them.
Okay.
I think perhaps maybe the most important thing, because there's a way for us to get to that or solve that gap, but I just think it's beneficial. So if they don't give us anything back, fill the gap by saying, here's what we think it should be, but I do think it's beneficial to try to get that. The most important thing maybe is that we really shouldn't be putting it on the street, or can't really effectively until we know which ones you think are the top, I think it's.
Well, I think, lists from both Patricia and Joe, they had, Patricia, and Joe Morgan, they were prior members of the commission, they had started listing properties, particularly, I think especially Patricia was interested in auxiliary buildings like garages and stuff that hadn't been captured in the first one.
Right.
Anyway, so they divided the city up into, south side, north side, so I do have those lists. So that's, a wee bit of a beginning.
Right, I mean,
So Caitlin is, what I can do is start, fleshing out, the actual requirements that you.
the requirements piece.
Yeah, like what is it we want you to do, like I say, not just
Right,
create Form Bs, but, how many,
sure.
what's required, if there's any meetings required, whatever, just flesh it out.
Are you thinking that we might bring back, say, some iteration of that listing to the commission the next meeting and run the list through?
Yeah,
Or how do you
well,
want
or the
what is your thought on it?
subcommittee might be able to take those listings and scoot around town and see the priority.
Yeah, I'd say we want to have at least 15. I would suggest we have at least 20, so that we can go out to them. We're trying to get as much as we can out of it, right? I mean,
Right.
we're basically told this is probably as far as you're gonna be able to go.
Right,
So we should have that many ranked.
Right.
Yeah.
sure. Okay,
Who's the subcommittee?
I would have to look at my notes. I think you were maybe on that.
I would
subcommittee.
say I will do it.
Huh?
I will do it. On further consideration, that night was not a good night for me to make that decision. Based on the tension in the room, but on further reflection, calm down.
Okay.
So I don't know who else put their hand up, I mean, it'd be you two. I don't know.
Well,
So I'd be willing to volunteer.
I'm blissfully unaware of what the tension was that night, but whatever.
I have a question
Your
around the,
finger shaking, if I recall.
for the Form Bs themselves, are there requirements around who puts those together? Or are these requirements really because we're going after the specific funds and that's where the requirements are? Questioning because I'm wondering if it's like, there are lots of people in town that research for fun and would be willing to, write up all that information for $0, which would require no fundage, so I don't know, I don't.
That may be a way of supplementing some of this stuff. My thing, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that it used to be a lot less formal. Maybe 40 years ago, like when that survey was done in the 80s here in Newburyport. But my impression is that they've gotten a little more fussy about how they're done. I don't think it's rocket science, though, think that, we've all seen Humvees that, they range from so sparse to a little less sparse detail, and, I think they will want references as to, like, if you say, like, oh, the courier built it, well, how do you know that, or so and so lived there, well, says who, and that kind of thing, so references that, but,
I bring up, because I literally do that for fun.
yeah.
And places that don't have a Form B or there's literally nothing on it,
Yeah,
I've been able to, do reverse deep.
yeah,
And record all that and find, paper articles that reference it and the maps that reference it, and, so I just feel like there are resources in town that we could, like myself, but other people I know that do the same sort of stuff, that would be willing to help fill in some of these Form Bs, because there's so many properties that have become
yeah,
historic since these things were done. I mean, the last time any of them were really done was right around 2001, I think. This is like the most updated Form Bs.
I don't know if many have been done since, like.
Well, most of them haven't been done since the 80s, but there was a whole round of them done somewhere after 2000.
And these would be beyond, or I'm gonna say this. Patricia and Joe were interested in like outbuildings, let's put it
Yeah.
right, but this would be more than that.
No, I think they were suggesting that out of those ones now, the 15 to 20, that they be some outbuildings because those weren't covered. You may, as members, feel differently and think that different ranking might be important, so that's why it's probably important that we look now. And with that listing, you may have different feelings about what you think is most urgent, so.
They really have to be ranked as the 20 most. So it could be that's like this garage or this barn that's necessarily.
Sorry, my butt.
So we have to sort of look at a ranking of, you're saying the 20 most urgent.
Meaning citywide, essentially,
Right.
yeah. So I guess ultimately speaking, what we want to give the consultants is, this is the address, right? So they, and the street address or map and lot, so that's very clear for them initially understanding the scope of work, and more importantly, for the contract, they know exactly what the deliverable is they have to give us. And there's no ambiguity, there's no, well, we'll figure out later on, and then there's, arguments on both sides about how long it's taking and how much scope of work's involved, right? So.
And the property is gonna matter a lot for them as well, just because if it's a 1700s building, the research is a lot more difficult than if it's a 1850s, or if we want to have them look at stuff built in the 30s and 40s, which
Right.
are,
Right,
which were previously considered not historic, but now are.
right. Yeah.
If you look at this list, there's probably some really important, principal structures that aren't even on it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's why I myself actually was leaning, I'll leave it to you, but I conceptually was leaning more towards primary structures, but I'm not opposed to all the accessories, but it's interesting because there are some that are listed that don't have a Form B, right? They're listed as contributing, but they don't have a form, so.
Yeah.
so I'm gonna start looking here and.
It's up to you.
Okay, was typing the follow-ups, so my pal Caitlin here, she'll check with MHC on, two things. Ask them if they know if they have lists of qualified people, and if they have an example of like a,
Scope of work, right?
yeah, something like that. that we can-
Yeah, whether it's RFP, quotes, both, we went for the scope of work, just to kind of, have it be as seamless as possible.
I gave myself a to-do. I'll take those lists that I got from, Joe and Patricia, get them organized, some understandable format or whatever. And now and distribute them to the team, which I think is, based on what I'm hearing tonight, is Chris and Biff. I think you might have volunteered.
I'm trying to remember that.
I don't think I did, which is odd. I think I would have, but I think I did.
But I'd like to volunteer from them.
Yeah, well,
It was the night of the frog pond discussion. Or one of them.
I see.
There was a, why wasn't this done in
Yeah.
2020? And when I got home, I was like, I think in 2020, we were all kind of hiding in our houses, weren't we?
Yeah.
I guess we could have done it.
Okay, so you can, and what was the other thing I was gonna do? Yeah, basically kind of get you guys at least see what we've got, what we gathered up, and we can, maybe convene to you guys need to feedback on, this list is crap, or yeah, it's a really great
Yeah, I
start.
think there's a bunch I could take
Yeah.
really quickly. I mean, the Mansard, one on Washington and Greenwood Street. The Form B was really lacking. I did a little bit of research and like everything was there, like for the original owners and everything, so. That was the Fowles, that owned it originally. The cigar place downtown,
Ah,
so. There's,
yes, I should-
but there's several properties I found like that, and I was like, how is this one not? You know, it's
yeah,
pretty
I know.
big building,
It's-
it's like,
yeah.
you know.
There were, and I think that was one of the reasons why this commission started getting concerned, is that part of what you said about, it's now 40 years later, more properties, but even older properties, they were properties that were just missed for whatever reason. And the addition would go to, and like, they're saying, wow, this is like a great old house, why isn't it this?
Well, I think the research is a lot easier now than it was then too, so that helps a lot here, you know.
But this doesn't require like knocking on doors. See, originally, that was what was in my head, was like, you have a garage. Can I knock on your door, and I look at your garage and fill out this form type of thing?
Yeah,
Because we had talked about something like that.
yeah, I'm glad you
Yeah,
mentioned
that's a
that.
good point, yeah.
In the ordinance, it says something about the, well, you smiling.
No, go ahead. I'm not
I think
sure what
it's,
you're
I
referring to.
think it says the homeowner has to be okay with having their house listed,
Having it listed?
yeah, as a contributing.
I don't know that they have to approve the listing as a contributing structure
Well,
Yeah.
it would already be contributing, right? It's just being the Form B
for the
for the
contributing.
contributing
Yeah.
structure. So it's not adding another layer of,
Well, I thought Jennifer, someone told me that the way things get on the list of contributing structures is via a Form B, is that not correct?
The Form B is part of the evidence for having it listed as a contributing structure, but
You don't know.
we already have structures that are on the inventory that are contributing that don't have Form B.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
And we have a number of them, actually.
Yeah, there are quite a few of them with Form Bs.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The Form B is providing enough information, including for the purposes of showing why it should be eligible, but.
Well, perhaps these, things will come to light, so Chris will bear in mind your reluctance to be knocking on.
No, I
doors.
just like,
Understandable.
I want a badge or something, like knock, hi, from the city.
It's funny.
On
you
the
should
historic
mention that.
commission, we'd like to walk on your property.
I was going through old email, and there's one from like 3 or so years ago. That's, I think it was with you, Caitlin, about if I'm doing like a site visit, should I have like a name badge or something? And that's, well, you could use your appointment card or something, and I had my appointment card, really. Anyway. Okay, enough of, so, you can expect to hear from me soon. Anyone else want to pay attention to that? I know you guys, especially when it's still working, and you're still busy. Okay, I think then, unless something else, we can have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Faust has a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Fay. Is there anyone opposed to such a motion? I'm seeing no objections. It's unanimously approved. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate your time as always.
Thank you.
And, see you in a couple of weeks, if not sooner. Actually, see you on,